Good evening, everyone. I'm Melanie Richardson, Valley Water's Assistant Chief Executive Officer. Welcome to tonight's virtual public meeting. We're here tonight to talk about construction of the Anderson Dam Tunnel project and what you, the community, can expect as this work gets underway. This work is part of the larger Anderson Dam seismic retrofit project to strengthen the existing dam so that it can safely withstand a large earthquake. The project will keep the public safe and eventually allow Valley Water to store water in the Anderson Reservoir again. Beginning the tunnel project is a major milestone for Valley Water and in our efforts to protect the public. So we really encourage you all to ask questions as the presentations wrap up. Our Zoom meetings have worked well this past year, but for those of you who aren't familiar with this format, we have our project's neighborhood liaison, Tony Mercado, here to help you and provide some insightful information on how to access the Zoom tools for this meeting tonight. So Tony, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Melanie. Good everyone. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen here in just a moment. I know some of us are familiar with Zoom, but in case you're not, we're going to briefly review some of the functions in order to make it easier for you to ask questions. So if you could just bear with me for just a moment. Let's see if that might be it. And I'm encountering some. I'll see if I can get someone here to help here. Unfortunately, not there it is. Thank you everyone for your patience with that. So on your screen right now is the Zoom platform webinar. If you're having audio issues or your internet is unstable, please call in to that number that is on the screen. Tonight, you will all have the ability to ask questions through our Q&A portal, which is located at the top or bottom of the screen, depending on which version you are using. You'll be able to enter your questions from there, and you'll also be able to ask your questions verbally by raising your hand. We'll enable your microphone and ask you to unmute yourself so that we can address your question. If you're joining us by phone, you can still ask a question by pressing *9 to raise your hands and also *6 to unmute yourself. We're not really recommending that you use the chat box function for questions because the questions will tend to get behind pretty fast down in that area. And so we want to make sure that you get a chance to have your questions addressed. Finally, if you're watching us on Facebook, you can also ask your questions there, ask the question as a comment on the chat, and one of our staff will be able to answer your question there. So that is it. Melanie, it is back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Tony. And now I would like to introduce Director John Varela, who represents this community as part of District 1 on the Valley Water Board of Directors. Director Varela was appointed to the board in 2015 and then re-elected in 2018. He has also served this community of Morgan Hill as a member of the City Council and as its mayor from 1992 to 1996. So welcome, Director Varela.
Thank you, Melanie. Good evening, everyone. As Melanie said, my name is John Varela, and I thank you all for joining us tonight. We have a lot to share with you. So what's about happening and what's to come in the months ahead. First, I'd like to welcome Mr. Mike Holmes, Representative Mike, Supervisor Mike Watchman's office. Welcome you here tonight. And so thank you all for being here. Let's move on with this presentation. At the April 27th Board of Directors meeting, I took action that represented a significant milestone on this critical project. My colleagues and I awarded the construction contract for the Anderson Dam Tunnel project. Our contractor will begin mobilizing at the site very soon, with construction starting in mid-June. For some time, we have shared with you the importance of rebuilding Anderson Dam so it can withstand a large earthquake and restore our water storage capacity. Thank you for your patience during this process to get us to this point. The tunnel project will take approximately 2.5 years and then several more years to complete for the full project. We understand that this will be a long endeavor, and we will do our best to minimize any impacts to the neighborhoods as we move forward. Our staff is ready to address any concerns you may have. So with that, let's get started. Back to you, Melanie.
Thank you so much, Director Varela. And now I'd like to introduce Chris Hakes, our Deputy Operating Officer in the Dam Safety Division. He will present information on the project with help from his staff. Then after his presentation, we will go right into our Q&A. So Chris.
Thank you, Melanie. I'll share my screen here, pull up the presentation. Let's see. Can everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up, Tony? Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So tonight we're talking about the Anderson Dam Tunnel Project. It's our pre-construction update because we're about to go out and start construction. This is actually an offshoot or one portion of the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit Project. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that as well. So the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit Project is basically updating our Anderson Dam, which was constructed in 1950, up to current seismic standards. The dam and reservoir are the largest of Valley Water's 10 reservoirs. The footprint of Anderson can actually hold the other 9 reservoirs within it. So it's a major cog of our water supply portfolio. In 2012, we started the project after a seismic stability analysis was conducted and found that, sure enough, the dam that was constructed in the 1950s wasn't quite up to seismic standards. There's not an inherent risk of immediate failure, but in a large earthquake on a neighboring fault, it could potentially sag and slump or cause some other issues. So we launched the Seismic Retrofit Project, which we were originally envisioning as a much smaller project. It was only supposed to be a 3-year project initially, just to add some extra material to the upstream and downstream faces of the embankment. However, in 2016, when we actually did some additional geotechnical exploration, we determined there was a potential for liquefaction. I'll cover that soon. The project all changed, kind of accelerated a bit and kind of split in two on February 20th of 2020, when the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, who is our federal dam safety regulator, issued an order, which I'll cover in a couple slides from now. So this is the dam as it exists right now. You have a spillway on the upper left, a very small, I use the term small in quotations, outlet pipe that runs right under the embankment. The capacity of the outlet pipe is about 500 cubic feet per second. That is not very big compared to the overall 90,000 acre foot capacity of the reservoir itself. It's like trying to maintain your reservoir level. If you thought your reservoir was a big 55-gallon garbage can and your outlet pipe was just a tiny little straw, it's not very effective. So as that's the case, we'll be addressing that as part of this project. The dam embankment there is the earthen portion of the dam. Basically, in the dam crest is just the road that goes on across the top of the dam. So what are we doing in the seismic retrofit project? As I said, initially, we were just going to add some material to the upstream and downstream faces. After 2016, we determined that that was not possible. We're actually going to remove all of the embankment that is liquefiable. So we'll take off all of that soil down to the clay core, which is impenetrable from water, and we'll replace it with suitable material. We're also going to replace our spillway in its entirety. That was originally not the case. In 2013, we were just going to patch the spillway in place, raise the walls a little bit. But after 2017, some of you may have been familiar with Orville, an Orville Dam. They had a catastrophic spillway failure. After that, the Division of Safety of Dams for the state of California kind of looked at all of their spillway design criteria, updated that a bit, and then we are going to, as a result, replace our spillway in its entirety. We'll be installing a low-level outlet pipe. Eventually, this pipe will be able to transmit about 6,000 CFS, which is about 12 times the capacity of the existing pipe. But in the interim condition, we're going to limit its capacity to about 2,000 CFS, so about 4 times the capacity. As you can see, This pipeline will actually run around the dam embankment through the abutment. That will help prevent any sort of deformations of the dam embankment damaging the outlet pipe. So unlike the existing outlet pipe, which is right under the middle of the embankment, if the embankment settles, that pipeline will get damaged. This one should maintain intact. We'll temporarily put a diversion system in order to drain the dam to construct the embankment improvements. And then, of course, we're installing a high-level outlet pipe. One of the advances since 1950 is the requirement from the Division of Safety of Dams, DSOD, for a high-level outlet pipe. This pipe will be able to discharge about 30% of the capacity of the reservoir in 7 days in the event of an emergency, as directed by Department of Safety or Division of Safety of Dams. So what happened on February 20th? So because of Oroville and the latent risk that FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, perceived with the potential for Anderson to basically fill up, they saw that it did fill up in 2017, activated the spillway. That's actually how it's designed. It's what we call a fill and spill reservoir. About every 10 years, 9-10 years or so, the dam will actually fill up and activate the spillway. And that's not unusual, and that's not a failure. It's actually acting as it should. But the potential for that dam to get all the way up to its spillway, the reservoir, and then an earthquake to happen, basically made FERC a bit nervous. They thought that that was just too much risk for the downstream community. They had just seen what happened at Oroville. They wanted to go into a very conservative mode. As a result, they lowered our seismic restriction, which was originally at 592 feet elevation, which is about 58% of the capacity. It had been there since 2009. They lowered it down to elevation 565, which is about 35% of capacity. That wasn't a big deal. We were in winter operations mode, so we were already down at that elevation or lower, actually, because we do have, in our winter operations, we keep a little extra space for any water that may come in from storms. The next component was to actually drain it all the way from 565 to 488. That's about 3% of capacity, and that's basically the lowest level that we can drain through the existing outlet pipe. We began that in October, on October 1 of 2020, and by mid-December, we were down at our 3% level, which is where we are right now. We might actually be just a bit lower. We haven't got a lot of precipitation. Weather's getting hotter. We might be experiencing some evaporation. So we're somewhere around 3% capacity, about 3,000 acre feet. It's not inconsequential. That's actually the size of our Stevens Creek Reservoir. We were developing a plan to maintain that level, and basically we've done that. And then the other part that we're going to talk about now is expedite design and construction of the new outlet tunnel, the low-level outlet tunnel, which is what you see there on the screen. It's about 1,900 feet long. It ranges in diameter from a small diameter of 8 feet up to the largest diameter of 24.5 feet. So it's quite a large tunnel. And then the final component of their order was that we were to secure permits and complete the design for the overall larger seismic retrofit project, which will start right after this project's complete. So, as a result of that February 2020 action, the district created a new project called the FERC Order Compliance Project. It actually has 11 separate elements, 4 of which are actual construction projects. We'll be talking about one of the construction projects today, the Anderson Dam Tunnel construction, which will begin in late spring, which is basically June. We're going to basically start groundbreaking in June. We have awarded our contract to a contractor, Flatiron West, and I've got a slide a little bit later that just shows you their logo. But we expect that the contractor will be on site mobilizing in the June timeframe. This outline represents what dead pool looks like from an aerial view when the 3% of capacity, I should say. Sorry, I use the word dead pool. That's what we call 3% of capacity. It's because where the water can't be removed through our existing outlet. As I said, it's still as big as our Stevens Creek Reservoir, but when compared to the 90,000 acre feet capacity, very small. One of the impacts of the project, of both the tunnel project and the overall seismic retrofit project, is that there will be no boating. No water, or 3% of water, equals no boating, and that will be for the duration of both projects, so about 10 years. Depending on the rate at which we draw water out of the reservoir, there also is the potential for rim instability, landslides. This picture is from 1987, which is the last time we emptied the reservoir. This time we actually held it at a net 100 CFS discharge. That was able to equalize some of those pore pressures and prevent some of those landslides. We also intend to go in this summer as part of the Anderson Dam Tunnel project to do some stability measures along here. Some potential impacts residents may see after storm events, because our outlet is open, the water level will rise temporarily in Coyote Creek. Of course, there's no rain forecasted anytime soon, so this is something that you won't see until fall or winter most likely. So you will get some increased flows after storm events. You'll hear noise from construction equipment, large diesel engines, backup alarms. Sometimes if you are in a close vicinity and those alarms can get rather cumbersome, there are alternate alarms. I've heard at some sites they use what basically is a duck call, but even a duck call will get annoying if you hear it enough. The work activities will be basically Monday through Friday during the day, kind of 8 to 5 sort of deals. There'll be some Saturday work, and if we do fall behind schedule for any reason, we will extend those work hours. We'll potentially work Sundays. Generally, a notice will go out to the public if those things are happening. You can also expect some dust from the trucks that are driving along Cochrane. It shouldn't be too bad. There's no one just right next to that road in terms of, the Borrello estates are a little bit off of that. So because we're digging a tunnel and it's kind of in the opposite or the other abutment that's away from the roadway, we expect a lot of that noise and dust to be contained within the tunnel itself. During the summer, when we heat up a little bit, there is the potential for algae to bloom within the water that's still in the reservoir. That may cause a little bit of smell, a little bit of stinkiness. The odor, kind of a rotten egg odor. We'll do our best to mitigate that, but there's not a lot we can do about that. That's just nature taking what it does, basically. Here's some typical equipment you might see. You see a grader, bulldozer, maybe some pile driving, or no pile driving, sorry. Those are drilling rigs. And then the tunnel itself, we have specialized tunnel equipment. You see those auger in the bottom left corner, or bottom right corner, excuse me, as well as the tunnel lining. They basically shore the tunnel, put some shotcrete on it or a lining, and they do that as they go. Anderson Park is closed. That is for the public safety. We closed it as soon as we started the initial draining, and that's because with the lake bottom exposed in some areas, there is some mud that is a little bit dangerous. We actually did have someone who either didn't see the signs or didn't pay attention to them and got stuck out there. So please be careful. Don't go to the construction site. Pay attention to the signage that says the site is off limits, and do not cross any fencing that is up. Basically, you can see that the layers of the county park that are impacted: Toyon, picnic areas closed, Serpentine Trail and Dam Crest, Woodchopper's Flat. No boating or fishing. And then I think even fishing from the shoreline is closed. There's no water to really fish in. And this is just a map that represents all of the wording that was on the previous slide. Project schedule-wise, we're in early 2021. We're about to start construction. We expect this will take through the end of 2023 till December. We'll be drained down to elevation 488 for this project and the next year. We'll come out right after this, start the overall seismic retrofit project. And once we get to the embankment construction, we'll actually take the remaining water out somewhere around 2025, and it'll stay bone dry, kind of like in that picture from 1987, until the operations are restored somewhere in 2030, 2031. As I mentioned, our contractor has been selected. It was through a best value process, so we are very confident in Flatiron's capabilities. And we do have a project representative from Flatiron in the audience today if any questions should come up for them. Valley Water Project team, this is actually just a very small sliver of the design and construction team. This is Valley Water's top priority. There are actually more people than I can possibly list on this slide. This is just some people that you may interact with when there are questions during construction. Our executive project manager, Emmanuel Ari, is here, as well as Madhu and Colette. Basically, I think they're both on this call as well. Our lead construction engineer for the Anderson Dam Tunnel project is Alan Masich. He's not here this evening, but will be around. And then, of course, our community liaison, Tony Mercado, definitely here. There's his email and his desk line. Tony also gives out his cell phone number because he is so basically customer service oriented. So if you ever need anything, you can definitely contact Tony. And we do have what is a new website. We call it the Be Heard Valley Water website. You just go to valleywater.org and type in Be Heard. We have a project page for the Anderson Dam Seismic Retrofit Project. It'll have this particular presentation as well as other presentations we've done in the past. It's very interactive. In real time, you can add a comment. It'll go straight to Tony. He'll put it to the correct person. We'll answer you. And if it is something that we think that the greater public would also be interested in, we'll post it to the site as well. There are other projects listed there as well. Pacheco Reservoir expansion, some trails. So it's kind of a good hub so you can get a lot of information about Valley Water in a very interactive method. And I believe that takes me to the end of my presentation. And we're going to go ahead and go to questions. I'm going to minimize my screen so I can actually see the questions. Stop sharing. And we'll go to the Q&A. Okay. So first question is from Swanee Edwards. Is it possible to get a short tour of the construction site by a water ambassador? My background is construction. I would love to actually see the work being done. We did something similar with a flood control project. So tours will probably not be allowed while the construction is ongoing. There are times once the project is complete that we do tours. We tour a lot of our facilities right now, usually once a year. What we are planning to do is try to set up a series of cameras and possibly drone footage so that if we can get live streaming from the site, we'll do that. If not, there will be videos as construction progresses so you can kind of see some time lapse, but probably no in-person tours right now. Swanee also had a question about what happens if we have a large rain event? How do you propose to protect the project? Will you use a cofferdam? There actually will be a cofferdam installed in the Anderson Dam seismic retrofit project, which is later. In terms of rain right now, it's all just pass through. We still have our entire dam in place, so it actually has the ability to store water. The difference right now is the outlet is just open. So as water comes in, it'll pass through at a maximum of 500 CFS, and it kind of goes into our normal operations. So in terms of, how do we protect the project? As we actually go into the seismic retrofit project as opposed to the tunnel project, and we start degrading that embankment, we will winterize the project every season when we get towards the rainy season to ensure that no damage occurs due to storms. Okay. Swanee does think cameras will be fun, so we'll make sure we try to get that installed and send out a link to everyone. Okay. Demetrius, what is the start date of the project? Well, technically, when the board awarded the project, that was one start date on April 27th. Realistically speaking, the contractor has what kind of like a go live date, which is the first chargeable day. I believe that's somewhere around the end of May. We're still working that out with the contractor. There will probably be a groundbreaking ceremony to commemorate the actual start to physical earthwork. And I'm sure that'll be on Valley Water's website to give everyone some information about that, probably in the first week of June or so. Okay, what will the new embankment be made of? Just like the old embankment, the new embankment will be soil. We will just make sure that this soil is well graded and non-liquefiable. Basically, earthen embankments are always made of earth. So, no change from that perspective. Let's see, John Sellers. The project is seemingly well advanced. Contracts have been awarded. What is it that you want from the private sector? Well, if the private sector wanted to get involved, we do appreciate any sort of donations. While this project is fully funded, any sort of donations that would come in would obviously be of help to the general public in terms of water rates. Tongue-in-cheek answer aside, any sort of advancements that you may see in the field from a private perspective, any innovations that you think might be applicable to this project, we would be more than happy to have those come in as suggestions. While the tunnel project is actually going to construction right now, we're not quite through the design of the overall seismic retrofit project. We're still going through our permitting. So any sort of advancements that you hear of or you think might be interesting, we welcome all of those comments. We'll definitely look into it. Just at one of our board meetings, someone had suggested a company out of Italy to do some work for us. Unfortunately, they didn't have quite the same skill set that we needed for our problem, but we definitely look into those things. Dave Hook, a ringer, an old Valley Water employee when we were still known as the Santa Clara Valley Water District. I see that there is a lower capacity than ultimate for the new outlet. Will the higher capacity be part of the embankment replacement? So the embankment replacement will incorporate both the high level and low level new outlets, which are both severely bigger than our 500 CFS capacity. I think in total we'll have the ability to discharge about 12,000 CFS through both outlets. It's a lot. In addition to that, we'll have our spillway, which can still discharge even more potentially. It has to be able to pass the probable maximum flood. So we will do that as part of the outlet, the embankment construction. In fact, the embankment will be slightly taller than it was before, about 7 feet. That's just for freeboard though. We won't be storing any additional water in there, no additional capacity. That's just to make sure that, freeboard is something that's required to make sure that you don't just, you're not running just ever so at razor's edge. It's kind of a factor of safety. Roland, what's the record highest flow in Coyote Creek? How much flow can Coyote Creek tolerate before it causes flooding? That's actually a very involved answer. Depending on where you are in Coyote Creek, flooding may occur as low as 1,000 CFS. There are some areas which are very capable of handling a lot more than that. I'm gonna see if, let's see, I don't think we have any of our flood protection staff on the line right now, but maybe Aaron can talk about, Aaron Baker, our COO of our water utility, can talk about what the highest flows he knows of that have come through Coyote Creek. Aaron?
Yes, and it depends on whether you're talking about Coyote Creek above Anderson Reservoir and above Coyote Reservoir. So the highest inflows I think we've seen, there's been some gauges up there. I know that we've seen 9,000 or 10,000 CFS coming into the Coyote system, the Coyote Reservoir system. The reservoirs, even though they do begin to spill, they do attenuate the flow slightly as it goes from Coyote Reservoir to Anderson Reservoir. And then you get lower flow, slightly lower flows as those spill through there. And of course, then you start to talk about the 6,000 to 7,000 CFSs that we've seen, in the 80s and the 90s. So going into the reservoirs, I believe we've seen 10,000 and higher, and then coming past the reservoirs, I believe it's in the 6,000 to 7,000 range.
And also, it looks like Juliana is actually online right now, and she probably can answer this, even no offense to Aaron, but she might even have some more in-depth information. Julianne, did you want to speak? She raised her hand, so I thought maybe she wanted to jump in.
Hold on, I'm here. So all I wanted to add was that we are in the process of expediting a few of the Coyote Creek flood protection management measures in response to this project to address the flooding downstream.
Thank you, Julianne. She is correct. We will be mitigating or creating a mitigation project, the Coyote Flood Protection Mitigation Project, to allow those flows that come through the new outlet to be handled by the existing creek. Okay, we do have several people participating on Facebook, about 76, and some questions have come in through that portal as well. One question, will the construction of the 1,700-foot tunnel destroy habitat, and will mitigation credits be used to offset the destruction of habitat? Well, since the tunnel is mostly within the abutment itself, there's not a lot of habitat that will be impacted from the tunnel construction itself. It's actually a 1,900-foot tunnel, so there's even an additional 200 feet of tunnel present. Now, getting there and the setup and the laydown areas, basically staging areas where equipment is, where material is stockpiled, there will be some impacts to the environment. Now, we, of course, have mitigated those impacts. We have several different types of mitigation measures that are present. We have, the contractor will put BMPs in place, produce a stormwater pollution prevention plan, but we also have other design elements that have been incorporated in the project to provide mitigation and offset habitat. And ultimately, we're actually going to restore habitat through the project. Once Anderson Dam is actually, the seismic retrofit is complete, we're actually going to have the ability to have a nice cold water pool for the federally threatened steelhead that are downstream in Coyote Creek. So this is going to be well, I like to think it's going to be at least a neutral, if not a net benefit in the future to the environment. Sarah, did you want to add anything to that? Feel free to tell me no if you don't have anything to add.
Well, I do think that we should recognize our Santa Clara Valley Habitat Agency, which provides a good framework for us to pay mitigation fees so that all of those land cover impacts are paid for, and they use that money to create and preserve habitat in the Santa Clara Valley, specifically in the Coyote watershed, in perpetuity.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, another question from Facebook or received in advance is building an earthen dam so close to an active fault line a good idea? It should have been a concrete structure from the outset. Who allowed the building of homes in front of the earthen dam that requires a seismic retrofit? So that's quite an involved question, but basically all across California, the most predominant type of dam is actually an earthen dam. Concrete dams are actually not the norm in California. Earthen dams perform quite well in seismic situations. The problem with our particular existing dam is that the liquefaction potential in the embankment has, so basically the wrong materials, as well as where the outlet was. It's undersized and it's right under the embankment, right? There's no redundancy there. So the earthen dam is actually the best type of dam to use in this situation. We did look at an analysis to put a concrete dam in there, but it didn't really make sense for the current situation that we're in. In terms of the homes that have been built at the base of the dam, basically whether homes are built are purely a municipal decision. So basically the city of Morgan Hill has the authority for developments and allowing certain developments. There was an EIR that was published, and Valley Water made sure to say that, there is an active dam there, there will be noise, there will be other things, but ultimately it's Morgan Hill's decision where homes get built. Okay, we have a question from Roger. Will there be any road closures of Cochrane Road during this project? Cochrane Road will not be closed. You may get some additional traffic. When some equipment is being delivered, there may be those oversized loads which require flagmen to be out there to kind of direct traffic a bit, but we don't expect any closures, especially not long-term closures. Maybe when a truck is backing in and out because it's so large, they may need to block that road for 15, 20 minutes, but there are no permanent road closures or any road closures over the extended duration planned right now. Okay, let's see what else we have. No attendees have raised their hands, so.
Chris, I guess I also got a ping that not everybody knows that CFS stands for cubic feet per second. That's one of the things that we use when we're rating streams or doing other things. So that's basically a cubic foot of water, or say a basketball of water per second. So when we're saying 6,000 or 7,000, when we say CFS, we mean cubic feet per second. So if we're also using any other terminology, which we attend to sometimes, some of those acronyms like FERC or anything else, please ping us and we will also be able to let you know some of that terminology there.
Thanks, Aaron. I try to use it at least once fully in a sentence before I start abbreviating it, but the abbreviations come out fast and furious. So feel free to step in anytime anyone needs any sort of a key to understand what I'm saying. Got a question from Ronald. How much does urban runoff and tributary flow contribute to flooding in Coyote Creek versus outlet from Anderson? What's interesting is I would say that the vast majority of flooding on Coyote Creek is actually the result of flows that are coming in, not necessarily through Anderson. And Anderson attenuates flows, right? Basically, when 2017 happened, we actually had 12 to 20,000 CFS coming from the upper watershed that was getting attenuated into Anderson. While we did leave the outlet open at 500 CFS, if you can think about it, and if the dam was not there, you'd be actually seeing a greater flow come down the creek. So in terms of Anderson itself causing flooding, that's not really the proper way to look at it. It actually is tributary flow and upstream flow that's coming down that's causing that flooding. Some other things that can contribute are any sort of, sometimes some people impinge on the creek. They might leave some debris in the creek. Those types of things can also contribute to flooding, or at least localized flooding. Okay. Dave's back with another question. I think you mentioned that the tunnel construction will occur mostly during the daytime. Does this mean there will be only one shift of work for the tunneling? And right now, that is what the base plan is. However, the contractor is on board, and depending if they would request night work or 24-hour work, it may be allowed. It will depend on where they are in the tunnel construction, what type of impacts there are to the residents. Is it noisy? Is it not? Basically, if they have the equipment and manpower to go 24/7 and get this thing done sooner, that is definitely something we would explore. We want to minimize the impacts to the community and finish this project as quickly as possible. Okay, let's see. I think we had some other questions that might have come in advance. Let me take a look right here.
Hi, Chris. I did have a question for you that came in.
Sure.
Do we expect to do much dewatering or other ground conditioning during the project?
Is Madhu online? Right now, I think the bulk of our dewatering was dewatering of the reservoir. Since we're actually doing a tunnel construction itself, we don't expect to find a lot of groundwater in our abutment. Potentially if the reservoir was full on the other side, and when we did our lake tap for our tunnel, we could potentially have some water there. But I don't expect a lot of dewatering, but I will defer to Madhu if he is on.
Yes, yeah, we are anticipating some little bit of groundwater during the tunneling, and also when we're digging the reopening the northern channel, so we expect some groundwater. But it will be treated like before it goes back into the Coyote Creek.
Okay. Let's see. Some other questions that came in advance from Ken. Can you possibly consider building a concrete dam on the reservoir side inside of the current dam? It was considered. It was found to be non-optimal, so we didn't pursue that option. Is it possible to enlist state or federal help to fund the project, even partially? Absolutely. We are constantly talking to the state and federal government in terms of whether there is potential for funding of Anderson Dam. I know specifically the state has a surplus of funds. They are looking at different pools to distribute that. We do have a request in for funding of Anderson Dam, I think somewhere in the order of $173 million. Whether that actually gets funded, that's a decision from the legislature. At the federal level, the Biden administration is big on infrastructure right now. Potentially there could be a package that's put together for dam rehabilitation. If that was the case, we would absolutely pursue that funding. So we're always looking for funding to offset the cost. And like on our Pacheco project, for example, which is another reservoir expansion, we did receive $500 million from the state through our Prop 1 grant. So if those grants come up, if that state funding or federal funding is readily available, we're definitely going to go after it.
And actually, even today, Chris, and yesterday, many of our directors, the ACEO and probably Director Varela was meeting with state legislators to advocate for funding for this project and to keep it on schedule.
There you go. Just to finish out Ken's questions, because he had about 4. Why don't we clean up Coyote Creek? It's full of debris from the last flood. That is a little bit of an involved answer. We actually own only about a third, if not a little bit less, of the creeks in Santa Clara County. So we are able to provide cleanups on creeks that we own. If we don't own the creek, we try to get in partnerships with other agencies for when they're owning the creeks to clean up. For example, we do partner with San Jose to do creek cleanups. I think we had something like $200,000 allotted, if not last year, the year before, in creek cleanups. And I think maybe it was allotted over 2 years, and we actually expended all of those funds cleaning up the creeks. We are coming up on our stream maintenance season, so where we do have ownership and the authority, we will potentially be doing some cleanups, so you might see our crews out there. But as I said, without owning all of the creeks and having all of the manpower to do it, it is a bit of a tricky situation. Last question from Ken. Can Valley Water fix the dam to hold more water? Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. We've actually been under restriction and haven't been at full capacity since 2009. So this will allow us to regain about 40, well, at this point, it's about 87,000 acre feet, but before 2020, it would have been about 40,000 acre feet that we haven't had the ability to realize in storage for a long time, over a decade. So we're definitely looking at getting additional water supply from Anderson once it's actually completed. A question from Mark. Can you say anything about what has been done, what will be done to properly address any Native American cultural resources that have been discovered through the history of the dam or during its current project? Perhaps general policies around this. We actually do consult with the State Historic Preservation Officer, which does oversee some of the Native American artifacts and different types of activities which might disturb those artifacts. I'm actually going to turn it over to Sarah. She'll be much more detailed in what we're doing, what we've done previously. We have gone through the consultation process. Sarah, would you like to join in?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So in 2018, we actually started our outreach process with all of our 6 local tribes. And we've developed an investigation plan with them, and we've requested some monitoring services to support that investigation plan. And since the tunnel project was initiated, we also have a programmatic agreement with that includes ongoing consultation, so that we have, in the event of an incidental finding, we have the steps in place where we know what to do if we encounter something unanticipated during construction. But it will be ongoing and continuing throughout construction.
Thank you, Sarah. Dave Hook is back. Always an engineer. Can you show us a cross section for the final tunnel configuration? Yes, we can. I don't have one handy. If you send me your email address currently, since I don't think you have a Valley Water email anymore, the project team can get back to you, show you some cross sections. Ultimately, there is actually an NDA in place because this is critical infrastructure. So we might not be able to give it to you, but we'll show it to you, Dave. I think you're reliable enough. We know who you are. Let's follow up after the meeting. Glenn, where will the tunnel excavation spoils be stored / disposed? We'll actually store the spoils from the excavation on site at the current boat ramp location. We are looking to reuse as much material from our excavation as possible. When the actual seismic retrofit project does begin and the reservoir is completely empty, a lot of the material that can't be used will be spread out over the site. They call it wasting, but basically it'll be spread out in the reservoir. The reservoir is very large, so it's easy to quote unquote lose that material. However, if there is any beneficial use for that material, we'll be looking to take advantage of that. Okay, question from Ronald. With Anderson empty, where is imported water stored? I'm going to eventually turn this over to Aaron, but very easy answer. When we get imported water, we like to put it into our recharge capabilities, so it goes back into the groundwater basin. So our groundwater basin is about 80–90% capacity right now. The imported water that we get will help with that. We also have imported water in the San Luis Reservoir from both the state and federal sides. We also have water that we send down to our semi-tropic groundwater banking, which potentially could be imported water. Aaron, why don't you give a much more detailed explanation of how our water system works?
Actually, Chris, you're doing a great job. We'll take you off Anderson and get you over to operations. The semi-tropic groundwater bank that he talked about was down in Bakersfield. That's where we store when there is flood flows or excess water. That's water that we move down there. Again, he also mentioned San Luis Reservoir, and believe it or not, we do store a little bit of water. We have the ability to put imported water into Calera Reservoir also. Not only that, on the state side up there, they have Lake Del Valle where we're able to put some of that imported water in that time. That is having Anderson out during these trying times is something that we want to make sure that we can understand what our options are with the drought and with that imported water, and making sure we can bring it into the county. And so fixing Anderson reservoirs is one of our top priorities to ensure sustainable water supply for the county.
Thank you, Aaron. Some more questions from Facebook from Jerry. Will water continue to flow down Coyote Creek during Anderson Dam construction? The answer is yes. Water will be bypassed from the upper watershed in Coyote. If any water comes down, it will go by Anderson Dam down into Coyote Creek. Related question that Jerry had submitted: since the 24-foot diameter tunnel will allow 5 times the amount of water to be released down Coyote Creek, will the bank's sides be rocked to prevent erosion, bridge disruption, and flooding? Yes, there will be measures put in place to ensure that the additional flow does not erode the existing channel. We're actually restoring the northern channel. I think there'll be some geotextile fabrics. We're still working that out with the regulators, what the preferred method is to make sure that those banks are what we like to call armored, although not necessarily hardscaped. So there will be anti-erosion measures put in place. From Vince, I was late to the beginning of the presentation, so please forgive me if this question has already been asked. What is the discharge capacity of the new tunnel? Will it be used to lower the reservoir prior to high inflows upstream? Will the tunnel operate in real time to discharge excess storage to accommodate high inflows? So the capacity of the new outlet tunnel will be limited at 2,000 CFS. We will still have the existing outlet tunnel as well. So in theory, we could discharge as high as 2,500 CFS. That will allow us better to control or to maintain the reservoir level behind the dam. Realistically, whether we will discharge at 25 CFS, or excuse me, 2,500 CFS is based on a myriad of factors. One will be the storm patterns and flows coming in. How high is that reservoir rising? We definitely need to keep it beneath our restriction, our current restriction. So we'll work with FERC and DSOD as to what the proper level, once that outlet is installed, for that restricted level to be. The short answer is we'll have the ability to discharge higher flows, but we don't know if that'll actually be necessary. We'll have to see how Mother Nature treats us in the oncoming years. Okay, a question from Denise. While the tunnel is being built, what is the overflow route for the water flow for the Coyote Reservoir? So the Coyote Reservoir is basically intact right now. We discharge into Coyote Creek. As it comes down the creek, our outlet is still intact and open in Anderson Reservoir, so it kind of has the same path it's always had. If for any reason, we got a backup or accumulation of water, a whole bunch of atmospheric rivers back to back to back, our spillway would still be intact, our embankment's intact. Basically, everything is kind of the same as it is, at least for this first 3 years when we're building the tunnel. When we actually get into construction of the seismic retrofit project, that may change a little bit. We'll have a series of coffer dams, possibly some piping. But right now, it's business as usual. Okay, question from Teresa. Still curious about the construction of the new embankment. Where does all that new soil come from? What kind of soil is it? And where would the soil and other materials be stored during construction of the embankment? So I think we might have touched a little bit. I'm going to work from the end to the beginning. We might have touched a little bit about what happens to the soils from the embankment. If they're non-suitable, we'll go ahead and place them in the reservoir, kind of lose them in the reservoir. If it is suitable, they'll be reused either in the embankment, the channel construction, any other projects we foresee that would have the ability to benefit from those. So that's how we're going to reuse or get rid of the soil. The new soil will actually come from the existing reservoir. Much like when the reservoir was constructed and the embankment was constructed, we actually took it out of the hillside. We have done some geotechnical explorations to ensure that that soil that we'll be drawing from is actually the good soil this time around. So it'll be kind of similar to as it was in the beginning. We're taking it from the existing hillsides around the reservoir. In terms of what kind of soil is it, I'm going to kick it to Madhu. He is a certified geotech. He may actually be able to give you a soil profile. I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess.
Yeah,
Madhu?
I think it's mostly like two different types of material. One is the clay core, and then there is the different zones like transition materials, mostly like gravels and sands. So those are the two different types of materials. And like Chris said, like there are two sources, like everything is coming from, most of it is coming from the on-site, like from the reservoir area itself. But there is one material, the filter material, that's kind of mostly sandy material that comes from a quarry. So yeah.
Thank you, Madhu. Stay on the line. Dave is back with another engineering question. Will there be a continuous geological monitoring / recording of actual rock fault, whatever conditions encountered during the tunneling? And I will just say yes, but Madhu will give you a detailed answer.
Yes, yeah, there will be continuous mapping of the tunnel face, and our design engineers representative will be out there, and also the CM, the construction management people also have some engineering staff where they'll also be there. So it will be continuously mapped.
Okay, thank you, Madhu. Question that we received ahead of time: does the current drought conditions expedite construction of this project or the greater project with Valley Water and the regulatory agencies? Valley Water is trying our best to get this expedited any way we can. Right now, the current drought doesn't necessarily factor into that. The regulatory agencies are looking at things other than water supply. That doesn't mean that people being concerned about a drought and possibly contacting their representatives to say, hey, we really want that project to move forward in a timely manner. We would always appreciate that input. Basically, the drought was just declared by the governor for 41 counties or 42 counties. It hasn't been declared for Santa Clara County yet, but it will. And we are in extreme drought per the drought monitor. So all of the public support you can muster to actually contact the people in charge to say that this is a priority, you want it to move along fast, you understand the water supply impacts, the environmental impacts, we welcome that definitely. Okay. Question from Ronald: is the goal of the new outlet tunnel to prevent Anderson from ever spilling? No, as I said, Anderson is fill and spill. It's designed for groundwater recharge. The goal of the new outlet tunnel, both the low-level outlet tunnel, is just to have better control or be able to better maintain a specific reservoir level, whatever that is. We are moving towards a climatic condition due to climate change that is more extreme, long periods of drought, and then periods of flooding. So we do want to have the ability to discharge at higher rates if it looks like that's necessary. But we also want to maximize our water supply. Basically not having 40,000 acre feet for the last decade or so has been a bit of a hindrance to us, right? We want to have those tools for these longer droughts that that are expected to come, and we want to be able to address that. The high level outlet could be used for additional discharges. It's actually an emergency outlet from the Division of Safety of Dams perspective, but that's just another tool in our tool belt, right? But that is why we have a spillway, is because if we do need to have enough water that it goes over the spillway, that's what the design mechanism is. So short story, no, it's not used to prevent spilling, but we want to maximize our water supply. Okay, another meeting or question that we got ahead of this meeting. In 2012, voters approved a tax to fix the dam, and in 2020, voters approved to renew said tax. When will the dam be fixed? How many more voter approved taxes are needed? So we actually carried forward the funds that were in the 2012 ballot measure. A portion of it has already been transferred to Anderson, but there's a portion still to be transferred. I believe it's somewhere in the order of 54 million. It'll actually be transferred over a long period of time, I think about 7 years, to kind of bolster the project as we're going on. In terms of how many more voter approved taxes are necessary, it's not necessary to approve any taxes. We actually have this budgeted and allotted for already. Any sort of taxes or grants, federal, state, loans, all that kind of things, they do help to basically lower water rates, right? So we're not looking to tax you to fix this project. This project's going ahead no matter what. But in terms of, we're really looking to help the community and to unburden them. Right now, a disproportionate amount of the hardship for projects like this do fall on some of the more disadvantaged communities. So we are looking for any way to lower the cost of the project in terms of funding. Okay. Question from Ronald. Will the new spillway still look like a spectacular waterfall when it spills? Short answer, yes. The spillway does go down and there is an unlined portion that is a little bit of a drop, so it will still have that waterfall effect. Question from Ken. I realize the federal government required the dam to be emptied to a certain level prior to winter. Unfortunately, I don't think this took into account very dry winters like the one we just had. Is there a chance of a little more give and take on this to take into account extra dry winters? Otherwise, we will be way below what is the percent requirement. So we are constantly talking to FERC and the Division of Safety of Dams, DSOD, right now on a weekly basis, frankly, as we move this project forward, but we will continue to evaluate what the appropriate restricted level is. There's a dialogue that is continual. Once that tunnel is actually completed, there may be additional flexibility, but even before then, if we are in a period of prolonged drought with no forecasted rain events of any significance coming, there may be the potential for FERC and DSOD to allow that restriction to be modified. That is something we will always keep on the table. We will always engage with our regulators and to try to do what's best for the citizens of the county. Okay. Is it possible to enlist state or federal help to fund the project, even partially? I think we answered this before. Absolutely, we are going down that road. Wherever we can see funding opportunities, we're definitely going to take them. Okay, let's see. Did I have any other questions that were received beforehand? So we did have some questions and answers provided beforehand. I'm not sure if this is in our FAQ. Who's the consulting engineers designing the tunnel? The answer is AECOM, very big multinational corporation. How will it be excavated? The majority of the excavation will be done using a road header, and a small portion at the upstream end will be using a micro tunnel boring machine and MTBM. What stage is the project in? We are moving into construction. Were the severity levels assigned for risks related to impacts on wildlife, home prices along Anderson, and firefighting capabilities around Anderson? What were mitigations put into place for those risks? We actually did do a risk analysis for construction of the Anderson Dam Tunnel project in conjunction with FERC, DSOD, and an independent board of consultants. A lot of the risks that you have noted in your question are actually going to be covered in the subsequent EIR for the Anderson Dam Size Retrofit program, or excuse me, project. Wildlife impacts, firefighting capabilities were looked at since Anderson is sometimes a water source for CAL FIRE. It was found not to have a significant effect or impact. But that will all be documented in the draft EIR when it's released, hopefully somewhere later this year, early next year. Let's see. If there were severity levels assigned for these risks, mitigations put in place for these risks, are these open for the public to read or review? When our EIR comes out, they will absolutely be a public document in which you can read, comment, and we will address comments if necessary. Let's see. Okay, we already got that question. Let me go back to my Q&A. Doesn't look like we have anything in the Q&A right now. Here we go. Question: what sort of geology is expected along the tunnel alignment? Madhu, come on back.
Yeah, I think we're expecting about 25% of the tunnel to be in the Santa Clara Formation, and it generally consists of like siltstones, sandstones, and conglomerates. And the remaining 75% of the tunnel is mostly expected to be in the Franciscan complex. Yeah, so it generally consists of like serpentinite, greywacke, and greenstone. So,
thank you very much, Madhu. Aaron, did you have a comment you
I-
wanted?
Well, I was just going to say, I think Madhu, I think we talked about some of the tunneling machines, and maybe the next question might be is where there'll be the use of explosives or other things to make it through those types of formations.
Yes, we generally don't expect any explosives to be used, but there may be instances that probably 10% of the material, yeah, we may have to use it.
Right.
But because we're so deep in the tunnel, it won't impact, like, yeah, probably it won't be noticeable, yeah. So.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Madhu.
Another question that came in, will the proposed outlet tunnel run below the dam like the original, and how deep underground will it be? It'll actually run around the dam embankment, not below it. Because the dam embankment rises as you get to the ends of the dams, it'll actually be quite deep. Madhu, do you know how deep from the surface the tunnel will run in any deepest location?
Yeah, I think the maximum ground cover is 200 feet.
There you go. Not an inconsequential amount. Okay, let's see. Do we have any attendees that would like to hear their voice instead of mine? That's always a good thing. I don't see any hands raised, unfortunately. Okay, another question. Why is there a pipe within the tunnel? Why can't you just have the tunnel as a conveyor giving you a higher water conveyance capacity? That's actually redundancy. We actually have more than one pipeline through the tunnel. We have our main discharge, a backup line, and that's in case anything gets damaged. And then the kind of fallback last resort is the tunnel itself, right? Part of the reason we don't want water just to free flow through the tunnel is because we wouldn't have any redundancy. It's, you know, basically if the tunnel shattered or offset, 24 foot of offset's pretty major. But if you know, if it was a much smaller tunnel because we designed it just to convey the water, any sort of redundancy would be lost. So that's why we, you know, we're engineers. We like factors of safety. We like to have redundancy upon redundancy upon redundancy. One mode of failure is bad for us. We want to kind of diversify and spread that risk out as much as possible.
And as you were mentioning there, Chris, the fact that we are designing it for such a significant offset and still be usable to make sure that we can maintain that public health and safety. Did you say 24 feet of offset there?
No, 4 feet of offset.
4 feet of offset. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, 24 feet of offset would be, we'd probably not be building a dam right there. It would be an unfortunate situation. Okay, another question from Peter. Will the spoil from the tunnel excavation be used, and how? I think we might have touched on this a little bit. If we can use the spoils, we will, either in construction of some of our creek elements, some of the dam embankment itself, on any other projects available, mitigation projects. We'll definitely try to put that to good use. Ronald, has the bottom of Anderson become silted over the years? Is there any thought of removing some of that silt to increase the reservoir capacity? There is silt at the bottom of Anderson Dam, not enough that it's really affecting the capacity, so we're not envisioning a large-scale dredging operation. That silt actually moves around naturally as flows come in, especially with the reservoir this low. As a large flow comes in, it will actually remove that silt for us through the existing outlet down the creek. So in general, there is silt, not a big problem right now. Who knows, you know, 4 generations from now, they may contemplate doing something else, but for now, we're good with the levels. Dave Hook, what are you doing on the outlet pipe / valves of a new outlet to deal with quagga zebra mussels, a potential future problem? Well, the very first thing we do is have a quagga zebra mussel inspection program, right? That is in conjunction with the County of Santa Clara. Anywhere where boating is allowed, we do have that quagga mussel inspection program in place. In addition, our operations and maintenance staff does go out on a regular basis to inspect all of our lines to see if there are any issues or incidents. Madhu, do we have any specific anti-mussel prevention measures incorporated into the current outlet tunnel design?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. And that being said, with the redundant pipes and the other things, and our aggressive inspection program, we may be able to find and slow down or stop and be able to treat a section of it as before it goes down to those various things. So an aggressive schedule, the multiple redundancy pipes, but again, you know, we do understand how Dave is correct, that how aggressive those quagga zebra mussels can be, and of course prevention is the best method. But that being said, there are multiple pipes and there are multiple ways to isolate those pipes so that we could, although treating is very difficult, so we could treat those sections and hopefully you know, eradicate the issue. But it is something that's definitely on our mind and a big deal to make sure that we can prevent that from entering the reservoir.
Thank you, Aaron. Question from, looks like Facebook perhaps. Being that the project is quite lengthy, risks may change as time goes on, or mitigations that were put into place may not work. Are risks and mitigations being reviewed? And if so, at what time periods? Yes, all of our mitigation measures and risks are reviewed. Basically, our risks are reviewed on an annual basis, if not more frequently. We actually have our independent board of consultants that does review those as we go and meet with them on an as-needed basis. But basically, our mitigations are actually monitored in real time, right? As we're constructing it, we do have inspectors on site. If anything does not go according to what we had envisioned, our design, we will immediately be alerted to that. We'll kind of have a powwow as to what the best course of action might be. It's very adaptive in the way we manage our mitigation when it comes to in-process work. We're also, yes, Rachel wants me to let everybody know, we also are a close partner with County Parks in the Muscle Endeavor. And as I did mention, we do have that inspection program with County Parks at all 3 of our reservoirs that do allow boating. Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions right now. Oh, here's one. Sorry if this was mentioned already, but is the new tunnel large enough for construction crews to work inside there in case any of the pipes needed to be repaired in the future? Absolutely. The smallest section of the tunnel is 8 feet, which unless you're a very tall, large basketball player, should be enough for you to get in there. Aaron, you made his living crawling in pipes much smaller than that for a long time. When you get to the 19 and 24.5 foot sections, there's obviously enough room for us to get in there. But absolutely, we have sized the tunnel enough so that we can do operations and maintenance activities.
And I'd like to add that we're also working closely with O&M and DSOD to inspect everything. The inlet structures are being designed so that they can be inspected, so that the valves can be replaced, and so those types of things can be done. So Chris's team has really taken we understand the public health and safety and the robustness of this structure and the inspection frequencies and other things that this larger tunnel and even the new intake will allow us to do in a much easier method than crawling through the pipe, which is all we had before.
Come on, Aaron, don't act like you didn't like it. You used to really get happy when you get to crawl in those little tunnels. Okay, Facebook Live question. Here we go. Rain for rent is available if any bypasses, dewatering, or any other types of water movement you guys need. Absolutely. We've called on rain for rent at other projects before. If necessary, we'll definitely reach out. With regards to the operation of the tunnel and reservoir, has there been any consideration for releasing pulse flows or supplemental flows to enhance fisheries post-construction, perhaps as a mitigation measure for any environmental or in-stream impacts? Absolutely, Vince. We actually have an initiative. It's called the Fish and Aquatic Habitat Collaborative Effort. So basically, that is looking at post-construction flows in in Coyote Creek from Anderson Dam, as well as 2 other creeks, Guadalupe Creek and Stevens Creek. So the thought of higher flows, pulse flows is being considered. We are working with the regulators on that. So that is a long-standing initiative with Valley Water, and we're hoping to move it forward in a timely manner. Okay, Teresa, amazing project. Thank you for providing us these opportunities to stay current with the project details and ask questions. It's not a question, but we do love shout outs of support. So thank you, Teresa. Okay, I think for now, that's all we have in terms of questions. I'll give it a minute or two to see if anyone else would like to ask anything else. We are available all the time. Just because we're having this specific public meeting doesn't mean you can't ask us questions on other platforms. The Be Heard website that we do have allows that instant interaction as well. You can always reach out to the project team. You can reach out to me. All of our email addresses are readily accessible. There are on the Be Heard website and the project page for Valley Water all of the past different public meetings that we've had. So you can see my talking head bobbing up and down, asking myself questions from 3 months ago, 6 months ago, and hopefully my answers are consistent. Okay, let's see. Dave, thank you. Dave compliments us on the great presentations and Q&A. He's very impressed. Thanks, Dave. Let's see. Tony, can you paste can you put the Be Heard website into the chat for us, Tony, when you have a chance? And will this meeting be recording be available to the public? Absolutely. It'll be up on the project page, the website, through the Be Heard portal. I think you can see the last public meeting we had with the Barolo Estates is on there right now. And it was just on the page earlier. So like I said, if you want to see me with a variety of backgrounds, maybe with the same tie, hopefully not, it's definitely there. Okay.
And Chris, the Facebook Live recording goes right onto the website, and you can watch it right away again after.
Thank you, Albert. So there you go, instantaneous rewatch it if this was that compelling for you guys, or you can send it to your friends. Okay, that kind of looks like it for our questions. Like I said, we are around. If you do have more questions in the future, this is not your last opportunity. We'll be here for the long haul. So just reach out and contact us if you have any questions in the future. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over back to Director Varela.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Valley Water team. For all of you that are still on this is my third presentation with Chris Hakes today. We did 2 television interviews this morning and here tonight. And I don't know what you did when I wasn't with you all day, but I got to tell you folks, our staff, our team is incredible. I mean, to listen to the questions and to answer them is just absolutely fantastic. So thank you to our team. You guys are just absolutely great. I also want to welcome with us tonight is Lakeisha Bryant, representing Congressman Ro Khanna's office tonight also. So the Anderson Dam project reminds us of how important it is to invest in infrastructure, especially when it will help us increase our water supply capacity. The timing is critical. Santa Clara County is now in an extreme drought. Our water supplies in California are once again being threatened due to the statewide dry conditions. Valley Water will have to rely more on imported water over the next 10 years during our construction for the Anderson Dam seismic retrofit project. Approximately 50% of our water used in Santa Clara County is imported. This makes water conservation more important than ever. The more we save, the less we need delivered. At our April 27th Board of Directors meeting, we increased our call for voluntary reduction in water use from 20 to 25%, and that's compared to 2013. Our community responded in the previous 7 years, water use in Santa Clara County was down by 20% compared to 2013. I want to acknowledge the community of Morgan Hill for leading the way on these efforts. This community truly realizes the water saved today is water that is available in the future. We ask that you continue your conservation efforts. Your good work is appreciated. You can continue to do your part by taking advantage of our robust conservation programs and save water and money. Just visit watersavings.org. Our future and yours depend on it. Finally, if you missed any part of tonight's meeting, it will be posted to our YouTube channel in the coming days. If you have any further questions about the project, please visit Anderson Project webpage at valleywater.org. So I just want to say thank you to all of you that attended tonight. Be safe. Good night.